What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. I am your host, as always, Manungus Creevy, and joining me is my co-host, Cameron Parker Pooh, and Gage Madrid NFL. Obviously, Glenn could not be here. He is currently getting his head waxed and shined and was not able to cancel the appointment.
He's getting a hair transplant.
He's getting a hair transplant, upper and lower. So it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
But this podcast is not sponsored by Manscaped.
No, it is not. It's what's the cream you put in your hair to take it out? Nair. It's sponsored by Nair. There you
go.
So how you guys doing after that wonderful game against the Chargers?
Actually, I'm doing fine. Contrary to probably a good portion of maybe some of the people on Broncos Twitter, I'm doing fine. I mean, I think that things are doing well so far, and obviously we're still here. So yeah, I'm doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm doing just fine as well. I think that this is one of those losses that you're a young team. You lost to a team that was well coached and has an elite quarterback. It's going to happen sometimes. I thought that time of possession really limited what the Broncos could do offensively for the first three quarters. I thought that they shot themselves in the foot a few times in terms of like penalties, and obviously Bo's turnover to start off, Javonte putting the ball on the carpet. You were -2 in the turnover battle, so that's obviously a problem. But overall, this isn't a loss where you look at things and go, oh, everything's an all-out disaster. I thought that was a lot of positive things to actually take away from this loss, and I think it's a good thing that the Broncos have a short week because they can flush it and move to New Orleans quickly. They've already done that, and I think that this is a great opportunity to get it out of their system quickly.
Yeah, and we also have to remember that the Chargers had 2 weeks to prepare, and so they were afforded the opportunity to kind of, have some of those injuries that they've been lacking a little bit in some key areas. And, and I think that, one of the biggest things that, this is from the Chargers perspective, and from the Broncos perspective, in the sense that we were all clamoring or I should say celebrating in the idea that, I am so glad that they didn't take Marvin Harrison Jr. I am so glad they didn't take, Malik Neighbors. And I mean, we're all celebrating at that. There's no doubt, but one of the best neutralizers of a powerful defensive line is having 2 powerful tackles with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. So, it's a bit risky with what you want to, celebrate there. And so that, and I think that just coming out of the bye, Alt was able to come back healthy. Slater was a bit healthy too. So that was a bit of a neutralizer a little bit for them. And obviously, Justin Herbert had a couple weeks to rest up, and you got a chance to see why Herbert is, according to some people, a really top-flight quarterback. And so it just and when you were a top-flight quarterback, it doesn't matter if your wide receivers look nothing like or look like trash cans. He's going to make them play well, And so I think that I just think that,
No kidding.
We might need to do some Photoshop skills on this one.
That's so good. Now I keep thinking of the Spy Kids movie where it's like the thumbs.
Yeah.
That's Glenn. All right, so you look at Broncos Twitter, you look at Broncos Facebook, and all the groups and all the chats, and it seems like every time Denver has a bad game, it's Bo Nix is horrible. Bo Nix is the worst quarterback ever. Yeah. Bench him, bring in Stidham. And I would like to point out that the offensive line was injured. We had backups in there, and they did not play well. The offensive line did. I mean, there were Forsyth was a sieve, and Powers can only do so much to help, and Quinn Miners can only do so much to help. Pert on one side didn't help. Bowles was back to holding every time he got beat, which was a lot. the offensive line did not play well. If you don't have an offensive line that can block defenders, you don't have much time to throw. Like 2.5 seconds in the NFL is a long time to throw, and that's not very long. So you take the offensive line away, you don't have that much time to throw. So you're going to throw off your back foot. You're going to throw it high. You're going to sail some passes. You're going to miss some people. I get it.
Yeah.
At the same time, you've got wide receivers that are not getting open. And if they are getting open, they're getting open at the wrong time. And he's already past your progression. So he doesn't have time to go back. And then you've got a running back that can't get any like running lanes in the offensive line. And when they do, they put the ball on the ground. Like
or when the running lanes are there, they don't see them.
Right. I'm not understanding what people are expecting from Bo. Like, there's only so much you can do. The only reason we were in that game was because of Bo Nix. Now, I would like to bring up that you look at, and it's the same thing that happened last year, and this is why I'm a little confused. You look at the first half production for the offense, and you look at the second half production of the offense. Two completely different things. Like fourth quarter, Bo Nix was incredible, but the first 3 quarters, it's not making sense to me. Is it is it Sean Payton like micromanaging and saying like you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and then go, or like what is the problem here?
Yeah.
Well, the way it started. Oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Gage.
The way it started, the whole game just kind of got away from them from the beginning. Like on your opening possession, you have 3rd down and 1 near midfield. That's very convertible. You should keep your drive going there. Garrett Bowles' false starts. It backs you up to 3rd down and 6. Oh, there's plenty of positive. We're going to talk about that. But
yeah, doom and gloom, Bill.
Turns into 3rd down and 6. It turns into a drop back passing situation where nobody gets open. But Bo ends up having to scramble, and he ends up throwing it away because nobody's open. That's a problem, and that is why I feel like the game got away from early. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it was 3rd down and 1, and then Bo threw the pick.
Yeah,
Bo threw the pick. That was the following possession
the second
on 3rd
one,
down. Yeah, it was the same, but Bo threw the pick, and it was a situation where you got backed up 3rd down and 1 to turn to 3rd down and 6. Bo gets a little bit hurried. His footwork gets a little skittish, and he sails it high. It gets intercepted. And like Cam and I were talking about when we texted each other, Cam said this, and I agree with him, that if this was like Cortland Sutton, he probably would have put his hands up and made that catch. He probably would have fought through that. But if it's somebody like Marvin Mims who doesn't have the propensity to fight through contact like that, he's not going to be able to bail your quarterback out in bad situations. You need better feet from Bo. You need better lower body mechanics from Bo. And if he does have that, he delivers an accurate football in that situation. So that's how the game started. Then on the next ensuing possession, that's what happened. It was another 3rd down. You get backed up. You have to throw it away because nobody gets open on 3rd down. I don't think that the play calling was the issue. I thought that the structuring of the play calling was fine. I thought the sequencing was fine. You just were terrible on 3rd down on both sides of the ball. Offensively, you couldn't convert on 3rd down, and defensively, you couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. And those were probably your biggest issues in this entire game.
Yeah. And I think that there are, probably a few blunders maybe here and there from, the coaching staff. And because to use the line from Sean Payton, everybody's hands is dirty right now, specifically within the first half. Now, I have to preface this way to lead everything off. Guys, if you guys follow me on social media, I was trolling, okay? When I posted about hey, let's go ahead and let's start Jarrett Stidham, for the rest of the season, I was trolling. So anybody that wants to
receipts,
so I just want to let everybody know. Now, I'm going to preface it also by kind of venting a little bit and talking about how stupid and pathetic Broncos Twitter is and Facebook about the fact that, you know what? Did we or did we not have a 3-game winning streak?
Wow.
We did.
Wow.
So lay off the fact that we actually had really good quarterback play. And so now you want to jump ship? Now you want to jump ship from Bo Nix? This right here is exactly why Josh Allen would never work as a quarterback of the Denver Broncos. I mean, what exactly do you want him to do? Do you want him to just sit in the pocket, get killed? Do you want him to sit there like Joe Flacco and get killed? Or do you want him to move around in the pocket like, a former quarterback that they had and was, trying to create sacks and avoid sacks and do whatever the heck he wanted? I don't know, like in the pocket, what exactly do you want him to do? So, I mean, like, what exactly do you want him to do in terms of, try and, create plays out of the pocket? It's obnoxious to me because it's like, clearly you guys aren't patient. Clearly you guys have no, idea what it means to actually have a rookie quarterback. You're not taking your lumps. You're not taking the identity of the fact that, we're going to grow as a team. We're going to grow as a, and we're going to throw these whole freaking excuses about garbage time. Well, you know what? They're playing 3 top 10 defenses. Is that Bo Nix's fault? No, that is not Bo Nix's fault. Garbage stats. Is that Bo Nix's fault? Probably due to the fact that they weren't great in the first 3 quarters, but it's the hand they're freaking dealt. And because of the whole garbage stats, maybe we should look at Peyton Manning's game against the Los Angeles Chargers when he was down 24-0. But you know what? He was performing in garbage time. I'm just saying, like, it is absolutely going to be taking time for this offense. And the fact that you guys in Broncos Twitter, Broncos Facebook are not enough patient because you guys can't let a guy, become what he is. This is exactly why I am so worried about this Bronco fan base and their ability to be patient with a rookie quarterback.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break while Cam takes a Valium.
Cam's spitting fire.
Spitting fire. Now, I did want to bring one thing up too. Now, Jeff Bryan brings up stupid zone defense. I can't say the other word because of where I am. Stupid zone defense. Now, I will say this, like, it wasn't the defense we're used to seeing, but you had PS2 go out like 4 plays into the game. Like, then you're trying to rotate people in at his position and trying to find a defense that works, because when you take PS2 off the field, it's a completely different defense. You can't just put somebody in a PS2 spot and he's going to play exactly the same way. It's not going to happen. So throughout the entire game, you've got Vance Joseph switching between man, zone, 5-man fronts, 4-man fronts, 3-man fronts, trying to figure out some way for the defense to work, and it just didn't work. When you don't have PS2 locking down one side, you can't let Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan run around and do what they need to do, because now you have McMillan over where PS2 is trying to do what he's supposed to do, but he's not PS2. He can't lock down that side. So I don't understand why people are so upset that the defense didn't play as well as they normally do. They didn't have PS2. That is a huge loss.
And the thing is, like, they're human. They lost the best player on their football team. You don't think that that's going to suck the entire air out of not just the defense, but the entire offense? And given the fact that it was such a weird beginning with Harbaugh having the unfortunate health scare for him on the sidelines, then you have the Marvin Mims interception, then you have a couple plays after that was the PS2 injury. It was a very weird beginning, to this game. And it was just like, so of course, like, when your best player leaves, when the best player leaves on basically either side, offense or defense, it will suck the life out of you. And anybody that has played organized sports should understand that. The moment that you lose your best player is the moment when it really does suck the life out of you.
And Riley Moss said that in his post-game press conference. He said that it cast a dark cloud on the whole defense and put them in a funk. And they weren't really able to overcome that funk until basically late in the third quarter, when they did actually kind of start to get some pass rush pressure on Justin Herbert. They did actually start to make some plays in man coverage. And per NFL Next Gen stats, Vance Joseph actually called the most man coverage last week than he did all season long. The Broncos have called the most man coverage in the entire NFL this year, and he called the most man coverage of the entire year in that past game. The problem was guys weren't holding up in man coverage. Riley Moss, I thought he had a bad day. Jaquan McMillan had a bad game. I thought that
Wallace.
Cody Barton was absolutely. Go ahead and roll the clip, Mike.
You got to give
Absolute booty cheeks.
I love when people like roll that beautiful bean footage, and it's like, wait, I gotta get
Roll
there.
that
Hold
beautiful
on.
bean footage. Yeah, but no, seriously, like Cody Barton was absolute booty cheeks in that game. Like that wheel route he gave up to Kamani Vidal. Yes, that was a good throw from Justin Herbert, but Barton gave up separation on that. It was just a bad play from him. I thought that he struggled in other coverage reps as well. So overall, you just couldn't hold up in man coverage, and that was part of the reason why you were so crap on third down. And the Chargers offensive line, they were fantastic in neutralizing the Broncos pass rush in that first 3 quarters. Even on the interior, the Broncos struggled to get a pass rush going. Credit to the Chargers interior offensive line for being able to hold up against guys like Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers. The Chargers are a really good team in the trenches, and Denver's a good team in the trenches too, but the Chargers just might be that much better.
Yeah, I want to bring up this comment for the perfect example of what are you talking about? Like, you can't just, yes, coaches prepare for when things go wrong, but you can't just throw in any player and be like, okay, play exactly as well as PS2 does.
Exactly.
Like, it's not, there's going to be drop off. It's kind of like the early 2000 Ravens if they lost Ray Lewis. It's like the Bears losing Brian Urlacher. It's like the Broncos losing Champ Bailey. There's going to be a drop off.
Yep. Yeah, and again, like we have to say it again, like they are human beings. I mean, like so we could say, sure, they probably need to coach better. Sure, that these players maybe need to step up better, and they probably do. But you have to factor in once again, like you're looking at it from the standpoint of like it sucked the life out of you. So what exactly do you want to do? Like from the mental side of this thing, like PS2 goes down, like you're just gonna basically just put yourself in their shoes. They're just gonna be like, all right, next play. No, you're worried about PS2. You're worried about that the health of the best cornerback in the game. So it's just like it's unfortunate the way things go, but that's the mental side of it.
Yep.
Come on, Bill. Come on. You're making it too easy for me. Come on.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't really adjust your defense on the fly like that in terms of changing your whole game plan in terms of one game. Like in this next game against New Orleans, I think we might see more adjustments, but it's really hard to go into a game plan thinking you're going to play all kinds of man coverage and then say, oh, crap, we can't play that anymore because our best players out. We've got to pivot to zone. At some point, you've got to commit to what you game planned for and just hope that it works. You can make some in-game adjustments, certainly, but you can't fundamentally strip everything that you game planned for in the middle of the game like that, or in the case of this game, a couple snaps in.
Yeah, and that's why you have different players rotating back and forth, trying to find the best place for people to go. That's why instead of moving Riley Moss over where PS2 normally play, they put in Jaquan McMillan and put Levi Wallace on the slot. Like they were trying to figure out the best way to move forward without PS2, and there's going to be a drop-off. There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to talk about tight end prospects. We're also going to talk about potential trades. But before we get into that, I also want to reiterate some things that were said earlier when we're talking about Bo Nix. Bo Nix cannot do it by himself. He has to have a running back that can find the lanes and hold on to the ball. He has to have wide receivers that can get open. Now, I was very excited. We saw a lot more of Troy Franklin, who also caught his first touchdown pass. We also saw a whole lot of Vele. I think he was the leading receiver as far as catches go, right?
It's a very interesting thing to monitor. I mean, obviously that was like his second game because he got injured after the Seahawks game.
Yep.
But it is interesting and it's worth monitoring that in the 2 games that Vele has been in, he's been maybe the most targeted wide receiver on the field. Now, I think what we did see, and this is definitely something you also want to monitor too with the wide receiver room, that was the most Troy Franklin has played, in a game up to this point. I think it was about 65% snaps. I mean, he's a type of player that, the Broncos have been really needing. Like they need a player that is a stretch the field player, a person who's going to be, stretching every blade of grass, either on the left-hand side of the field or on the right-hand side of the field to the middle of the field, and even going deep. They need a player like that. And Troy Franklin, I think, is, at least in that game in the Chargers, and when things were actually going really well, when the Chargers weren't playing prevent defense, by the way, Franklin looked really, really good. I mean, like he was beating corners, he was beating, them deep, and Bo was, able to find Franklin. I think that when you start looking at a lot of these areas where, players are starting to get comfortable, they're knowing their roles, they're knowing their place. That's where guys like
rolling, shut your mouth.
I mean, that's where I think guys like Franklin and Bo specifically, and them having that relationship is a really big deal going forward. And I think that one that you would like to see is, obviously I see that Bill chimed it in, is Estime. I think it might be time where, we might need to see a little bit more Estime. Meaning it's time for Estime.
Definitely. I've already made a video about this on Broncos Syndicate. I am out on Javonte Williams completely. You cannot put the ball on the carpet. And additionally, he single-handedly killed another drive as well. It was their first possession at halftime where they were down, I believe it was 20-0 at that point. They had a pretty decent drive going. They had a screen set up for Javonte Williams on 2nd down and 10. Bo hits him in the hands, and Javonte drops it. And that was basically the end of that drive after that. So at this point, you are a liability to this team. He's putting the ball on the ground. He's not seeing cutback lanes. His vision's poor. I just don't think the Broncos have any benefit to keeping him on the roster at this point. I think that you need to explore a possible trade opportunity. And if not, then I'm ready to move on. Audric Estime's healthy. He's ready to go. I'm ready to see more Blake Watson. Hopefully we can get Tyler Bidet back some point this season. At this point, we need to see who's going to be a part of this running back room long-term, because I see a complete overhaul pretty much coming in that room, save for maybe Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin next year.
Yeah, and you could put your tinfoil hat on just a little bit, but that's one of the reasons why a lot of us were speculating they might be looking at a completely different room with the additions of what they brought in with guys like Blake Watson and Audric Estime, meaning that, those are probably two guys that may or may not be running back 1 and running back 2 next year, based on, the way things could be shaping out. But I think that, I'm very concerned about Javonte. We should also be a little bit careful because, when they did win that 3-game winning streak, or they won those couple games against the Jets, and then they won against the the Raiders. Javonte did look good, and we need to, be careful, because we were praising him, for his performance in the last, in those last 2 games. But to push forward with what Gage is saying is, we can't have the same old stuff that we've been seeing with Javonte. I mean, and I think that where the unfortunate value of where I think Williams' role is going to need to be with this offense, if they decide to move on from him a little bit as a running back, would be the pass protection, because he has a lot of value, with the pass protection, and, with him in the backfield. And so I think that, there's probably some sets where maybe you want to use a Michael Burton a little bit, maybe in some situations, but you also want to use some Javonte Williams in some pass sets. But I just think overall we have to be a little bit careful and know the fact that he did, help us significantly in those 2-game winning streaks. And so, but still, you also have to call it for what it is. And he did put a ball on the turf. He kind of was a shell of himself once again in the start of the season. So you just hope that trend doesn't continue. But also you have to appreciate the fact of what he can be able to do in the pass game. And,
I just think that I just think that for 2 years now, we've kind of seen this consistent trend with him where he gets hot and then he gets cold again. And I think we're going to see it again, probably where he's going to get hot again and then he's going to get cold. And I'm just ready to move off from that at this point. I need consistency.
So one of the things we were going to do is give 2 guys that were in on and 2 guys that were out on for the team. Gage already took my Javante, so I'm going to come up with another one. So I'm going to give you 2 guys that I think should be on this team, are going to be a centerpiece of this team, and 2 guys that I think we just need to get rid of. My first one is Garrett Bowles. I'm done. I've had enough. You continue to hold. You continue to get burnt. You continue to make too much money for the play that we're getting. I'm done. I'm out. I don't want Garrett Bowles anymore. Get rid of him. Move Cam Fleming over and just go with that. The second one that I'm out on, and I'm sticking with the offensive line because there's a lot of bad on the offensive line. Alex Forsythe. Like, I know you're young. I know that you could potentially develop, but you can do it on a different team. I am done. All we've seen is you be a turnstile. I've had enough. Done. And that's it.
So you're making this assessment after one game.
Yes, I'm done. I'm out. I'm done with it.
Calling him a turn.
I've had enough.
He's done.
I've had enough. No more. 2 guys that I think I'm very high on. Nick Bonito, completely turning it around. 4 sacks in 4 games. That's the pass rusher we thought we were going to get, and I absolutely love it. Now, this one's going to sound a little weird because he had an iffy game, but Jaquan McMillan.
You took one.
That's what you get for taking Javante. Jaquan McMillan. I love him in the slot. I think he is a fantastic corner. And I think when you pair PS2 with Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan, you have the 3 best corners in the league. Your turn.
I was going to say, Gage, since he took some of yours, why don't you
Okay. So we've already talked about Javonte Williams. I've already made my stance pretty clear on that. So that's definitely going to be one. Second one is a guy who it seems the team is also out on, and I don't understand why he's even still on the roster, and that's Greg Dulcich. He's been active for the last 2 weeks now. I am done with him. And quite frankly, I said this in the pregame, like, you could tag pretty much anybody in that tight end room, and I'm done with them. I'm ready for a complete overhaul, blow it up, and start over again in that tight end room. As far as guys who I am in on, I would definitely say that I am in on Justin Sternad. I think that he has been a really positive addition to the linebacker room. He flies around in coverage. He has really made the absence of Alex Singleton very much almost unnoticeable. I think Cody Barton's been poor, but that's more of a Cody Barton issue than a not having Alex Singleton issue, I feel like. Because Sternad stepped into the position that Singleton has played, and he has played well in that position. So that's definitely one guy I am in on. Another guy I am in on is Alex Palczewski. He has been phenomenal at right tackle. I think he might be your right tackle of the future. I think the Broncos might have some serious conversations about maybe moving Mike McGlinchey to left tackle and then moving on from Garrett Bowles. Will that happen in season? I doubt it. But I think next year, very strong possibility. You asked Mike McGlinchey, hey, how do you feel about moving to left tackle? Because Palczewski, he never played left tackle in college. Broncos tried him a little bit at left tackle, and it wasn't great. He is a naturally suited right tackle. McGlinchey, on the other hand, played left tackle in college. So that's something to at least keep an eye on. Another guy that I would say I am, or did I already get my first one I was in on?
I don't know. Yes.
You
did. Did you?
Yeah, you said you said
you did Sternad and then Palczewski.
It was Sternad. That's right.
Yeah.
Now,
already forgetting.
To be fair, you could just take a Garrett Bowles cardboard cutout, put it where he normally plays, and get the same production.
Pretty much, yeah. He's been awful.
Oh man. All right. So since I'm last, there might be some players that were already talked about. I should say. But I think it's very easy to say that, some players that you are out on have got to be, on the offensive side of the ball. I will say you can pick a handful of some of the players, that were mentioned, but I mean, Greg Dulcich is probably numero uno for me. At this point, he's taking up a roster spot. It sounds very cruel to say. He's taken up a roster spot, and you can't make the case for, every single player that's in that tight end room, basically, except for Adam Troutman. And so I think that Dulcich is taking up a roster spot, and frankly, I think that he's more than likely going to be inactive again on Thursday. And I think that after we have this, after that game, there will be a conversation, and frankly, probably should be a move that he will be cut after that Saints game. And I got to roll with the Garrett Bowles idea. I mean, like I'm done. I mean, like I've supported him, and everything that he's been, and he's certainly become a rather, solid, offensive tackle in the pros, but he's reverting back to some of his brain fart mechanics that he had as a rookie left tackle. I mean, and to use the clip that is going to be on every single person's mind, is that 20-plus yard scramble that Bone Eggs had, where Bowles was a deer in the headlights. He did not know what to do, on the on that play. I mean, like, he's basically just standing in front of Bo, just like saying what's up to the guy on the ground. And it's just like, he's not looking around. He's not, basically helping out his quarterback. It was just a complete, deer in the headlight situation. And there's way too many situations this year, like that. And I do think that the Mike McGlinchey idea, which is something, that I did pose that a little bit, to Gage's point, and me and Gage talked about that. It's like something that it's worth, mentioning, that like the Mike McGlinchey idea. No, he's not played left tackle in the NFL. He has played in left tackle, and that was at Notre Dame. I don't know whether or not that would work, but it certainly would save you, many dollars. And I feel like, McGlinchey contractually will be with this football team. The question is just, obviously, because, for one, Sean Payton invested in him. The team, Zach Strief, invested in him. So I think it's pretty easy to know that McGlinchey will be here. It's specifically, too, with an offensive lineman and a young development, and this is to the Alex Bofcheski point. He's too young in his development for you to ask him to switch positions, specifically in the sense that, he's been playing so well at right tackle. So I just think that, once you can be able to do that, you'll have both anchors. You'll have both anchors at left tackle, and I think it's going to be beneficial. But I don't think you do see it mid-season. I think it's going to end up being after the season, frankly.
Bring that comment back up from Graham, because it's 100% true. There are some offensive linemen who are better at it than others, but pretty much any offensive lineman will tell you that switching sides is like trying to wipe your ass with your
I think Schlereth. I think that's a Schlereth.
Who said that? Somebody said that.
I think it was Schlereth.
Yeah, that sounds like something Stink would say. And
yeah.
Speaking of Stink, that's actually something I wanted to talk about. I should have given you a clip to play on the podcast today, Mike, but a lot of people are questioning Sean Payton's play calling. And Mark Schlereth, ironically enough, it was a segment about Nathaniel Hackett, but he was talking about what separates good play callers from bad play callers in the NFL, or just football in general. Let's say that you've got this play action that you really like against a certain front and a certain coverage, but you know that if you run into that front, you're probably only going to average 2 yards per carry. You know deep down that play is not worth a crap. Bad offensive play callers will just say, you know what, screw it. We can't run into this. It's a 2-yard per game play. It's not worth a shit. I'm going to dump it. Good play callers will be like, you know what, I get it. This play is only going to net me 2 yards per carry, but the play action that I have off of this is going to net me 4 to 6 explosive plays in the passing game. If we run this run 6 times, average 2 yards per carry, and commit to it. That's what I think we see a little bit with Sean Payton's play calling, where fans get frustrated that it can get run, pass at times. You're averaging 2 yards per carry. You can't really run the ball. It's Sean trying to set stuff up and build off of it. And those plays were there against the Chargers, some of the play action that he was trying to build off of some of the runs. But at the end of the day, whether it was receiver not getting open, protection breaking down, Bo not seeing him, whatever it was, the play just didn't get made. It was there. The play calling has been fine. There's little nitpicky things I feel like you can pick out, like the 2-point play call, the end around to Troy Franklin. I hated that play call. I absolutely loathed that play call. And there's a few here or there, but I think the overall structuring of the play call is fine. The execution has been the issue.
Yeah, and I think that's where we all kind of fall in line. Like, it's more about a personnel problem. Like, it's, you know.
And I'm not going to call anybody out in the chat. Like, we're not saying it's you, but there are a lot of people around Facebook, those Denver Facebook groups. Don't ever get into those. They will ruin your life.
It is.
And then there's like certain Twitter accounts. It's like harping on Sean Payton and how he's a horrible play caller, but then completely ignoring all of the like little procedural stuff that the players were not doing well, like putting the ball on the ground, running the wrong route, like missing your block. Like, there were so many things that are just simple, basic things that need to get done for a play to work. And we're not failing on the play calling side. We're failing on the execution side. That is a player problem. That's a personnel problem. That is a lack of talent problem.
Yeah.
Now, there's some things that Sean Payton can do to make the operation smoother. Like, he's clearly not getting the play call in a timely manner. You're seeing way too often that they're not breaking the huddle until like 15 or sometimes even 10 seconds. And that doesn't give you enough time to really dissect what the defense is doing, put a guy in motion if you need to, set the protection, all of that stuff. Sometimes they're literally having to get up to the line of scrimmage, go set hut and snap the ball with 3 seconds left on the play clock. That is a problem, and I do think Sean Payton can be a little bit more timely with getting the play call into Bo Nix's helmet.
But sorry, Cam. At the same time, you have a rookie quarterback that needs to learn those things. If you go away from it, he's never going to learn how to do it. He's never going to learn how to get it in a timely manner. So, like, you look at it and say, well, he needs to speed it up. Well, maybe he's getting it in a proper amount of time, but Bo Nix is struggling to relay that information.
Yeah,
sure.
Also, to tie a bow on my section a little bit as far as the 2 players to keep. And, no, you're good.
Oh, you weren't done yet?
Well, I did give the 2 players that I was in on. But I will say, as far as the 2 players that I am in on, one, it's actually to go with a little bit of a theme on the reverse side of things. It's in one group. It's in one group, and it might kind of surprise some people. Obviously, I'm very much into the need of a wide receiver 1. Obviously, everybody knows that. I'm very much into the mold of that. But the one player specifically might actually surprise some people. But as far as like the one player that I am in on, should not surprise some people, and that would be Devon Bailey.
How dare you?
I am in on Bailey. I think that there is something there. I think the scouting department did a lot of really good homework, I should say, when it comes to Bailey, and I think that this whole target share and the ability for Yak, I think, is not something that's been unnoticed. He's a valued contributor that is on this football team, and I think that Nix already trusts him. So I think that that is definitely something that I think is not going to be going away. And I think that he's specifically also a player too, size-wise, and given everything that we know with what you're seeing, he's going to end up being a pretty trusted companion when it comes to that wide receiver room. The other one, Courtland Sutton.
Yuck.
I'm actually in on keeping Courtland Sutton, and that's kind of a hot take to say based on where we've been in this channel. But like when you were in this idea of making the perfect wide receiver room, you want to also keep it with wide receivers and players that this young quarterback is going to end up trusting. And there, frankly, is no wide receiver right now that he trusts. Maybe aside from maybe Devon Bailey at this point, but I think that Courtland Sutton is a very trusted wide receiver for Bo at the early point of this season, and I think that. To preface it, I think that he would be a phenomenal wide receiver too here specifically with the Broncos. And I think that if you're at least able to give him the idea of a wide receiver one, I think that you will see just how much of an impact a guy like Courtland Sutton would have with his big catch radius. And I think that his yards after catch is actually a little bit underrated at times. And I think that, we haven't exactly seen that a little bit. We saw it a few times, I think, in this 3-game winning streak a little bit. And I think that you're starting to kind of see that just a little bit. So I think that Courtland Sutton, I think is a player that I'm in on. Like, and obviously clearly when you have a quarterback who can throw some of those passes, and to a wide receiver where he makes those circus catches, I think it's great. So I'm very much into this mold of keeping Courtland Sutton, but obviously, it comes with a caveat, not having him as your wide receiver one. You're having him as a wide receiver two, but he's still a bit of a foundational piece necessarily of that wide receiver room because you have that young quarterback and that relationship that he had with him.
Yeah. Now we sit here and we talk about who we're in on, who we're out on. I think it's the perfect time to move into who the Broncos could potentially get either in free agency or for a trade before the trade deadline, if we even think the Broncos are in. There was a comment up before, was it from D-Rock or Noah, where he said that he doesn't – all right, I really don't believe Peyton thinks we are contenders yet, so I don't anticipate any moves. That is an interesting question. Now, me personally, I think this offense clicks better if we get a tight end. And we talked last week about potential tight ends. I'm still in on Njoku.
You're welcome.
This is after the Jets made a trade for Devontae Adams and the Bills made a trade for Amari Cooper. So we're already seeing players start to go from teams that completely suck. And I'm glad that the Raiders are part of that. I think that's hilarious. I'm seeing a lot of Mark Andrews comments. Mm-hmm. Mark Andrews or David Njoku. And if it's not between the two, would either one of them actually have a shot at getting traded?
Yeah, go ahead, Gage. Andrews
go for it. I killed your segment last time.
You can't just push that off.
Well, I was going to say, Mark Andrews is hard for me because he's with the Baltimore Ravens, right? I mean, he's still very much on my radar, but he's with the Baltimore Ravens. And if they're contending, why would they ship off a tight end to a conference opponent and help them out? You know what I mean? He's very much on the radar, but he's kind of low a little bit on the radar. And it's actually to the same argument for me with Dawson Knox, actually. Dawson Knox is actually on my radar too. But he's with the Bills, he's with the Bills. And I think that, it's one where if the Bills are contending, and the Ravens are contending, why would you want to, actually, why I take it back. I would like Dawson Knox because it was pretty clear that the Buffalo Bills helped out the Kansas City Chiefs by allowing them to trade Xavier Worthy. So maybe the Buffalo Bills are dumb enough So maybe the Bills are dumb enough to where they can actually, trade Dawson Knox, to the Denver Broncos. So maybe a little bit higher than normal for Mark Andrews. But yeah, David Njoku, I think that's why you look at guys like Evan Ingram and a David Njoku specifically, because of the fact that that they're selling. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Raiders, the Browns, and the Jaguars right now are probably selling. So Ingram and Njoku is probably the ones that I'm eyeballing. And I think that Njoku is obviously numero uno on my list based on what he can provide in the middle part of the field, what he can provide after the catch. I think that a lot of us probably remember a little bit about how big that game was against the Cleveland Browns last year. Well, a huge component of that was David Njoku and his ability in the middle part of the field and how reliable he was as a target. So I think that having that ability and having that kind of weapon for you and trustable weapon will just only spread things out just even more to where, they may not necessarily, in air quotes, need a wide receiver one, but they certainly desperately need a tight end right now so that it can definitely help out spread the field a little bit more and have some of that yak from that tight end position.
Now, Cam, you talk about the Browns being sellers. How big of sellers do you see them becoming? Are we talking like a Myles Garrett kind of trade?
No.
Okay.
No. It's just I think that there could be specific players, and that's why I think it's only going to be probably like Amari Cooper and David Njoku. It's not going to be like anything like Myles Garrett and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, not necessarily
Deshaun Watson, the best quarterback in the NFL.
Right. So, but I mean, I will say though, what does get fascinating is the Jacksonville Jaguars gauge, because, I will say, because the fact is that they won one game, right? They won one game. But still, they're very much selling, but they have pieces. That's the thing. They have pieces that you could ask for, and possibly even take on, where it isn't just the tight end position that you could be asking for. There is a specific wide receiver that I'm actually eyeballing and might like just a little bit more than Evan Ingram, and his name is Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm. I'd be down for Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah,
I still think that for immediate needs, tight end is the biggest need to really open up this offense. I think you can work with most of the pieces that you have on the receiving core, and I think that if you have a tight end that can eat up space in the middle of the field, it's actually going to make things a lot easier in terms of your wide receivers getting open, because guys are going to have to dedicate their coverage to the tight end over the middle of the field. So it's going to be a lot harder to double Cortland Sutton, for example. It's going to give a lot more one-on-one matchups.
Tight end one, baby. Tight end one.
Tim Tebow, one preseason game with the Jacksonville Jaguars, baby. Woo! But no, Evan Ingram, yes, definitely would be interested in him. David Njoku is probably my number one target. And I think with the current state of the Cleveland Browns, they're not going to trade away Myles Garrett. He's probably the one guy that they would not be willing to part ways with. Deshaun Watson, they'd be totally willing to part ways with him. It's just
never
they
gonna
literally
happen.
cannot get rid of that contract. It is undumpable.
And also you have to have probably a pre-conversation with a guy by the name of Jimmy Haslam, but that's
Well, for me at this point, I'd just rather eat your sunken costs and just move on, but that's just me. I think you can move on from Deshaun. It's just Jimmy Haslam won't let him do it. But no, Myles Garrett, definitely not. Mark Andrews for the tight end position. I just don't see it like you, Cam. I think that it wouldn't benefit the Ravens to trade him. Yeah. What he brings as a blocker to their run game alone is so valuable. He helps spring things for Lamar Jackson in the run game. Obviously, with Derrick Henry now there, it just doesn't make any sense just from a run game perspective, even if he's not offering you as much in the receiving game. But I actually thought Andrews kind of woke up a little bit last week and kind of looked a little bit closer to his old self, even if he's now the clear tight end 2 behind Isaiah Likely. So I don't see that one happening. I think that David Njoku is very realistic because of how bad the Browns are. And I also think Evan Ingram is very realistic. as well.
So
I think
D-Rock wants to know if there's anybody suitable from Dallas. Sorry, Kim. And then he says, Graham says, Micah Parsons.
I mean,
There we go.
it's obnoxious to think about, but it's not necessarily. But the reason why I say this is because, like, you know, Micah Parsons needs a new deal, you know, and but like I just overall, it's not.
CD Lamb. That's that.
Yeah.
Shoot for the moon.
I will say though, like there is one that might be worth monitoring, and I say that like as a wide receiver goes, and it might be worth monitoring what's going to happen with the New York Jets. And why do I say the New York Jets? Because it's probably worth monitoring if you're a Denver Bronco and Sean Payton about Garrett Wilson. Because like I actually am dead serious about this because like, you know, given
the Jets receiver I was expecting.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go Devontae. Like,
no,
wait.
No. If that whole going from dysfunctional to dysfunctional, you know, like I very much am like, you know, interested in what's going to shake out with, you know, the Garrett Wilson saga, everything that's going to be handling there. It's already, you know, dysfunctional. Frankly, I wouldn't even be surprised if, you know, as things are, you know, trending forward with, you know, general manager, you know, Aaron Rodgers down there, like, you know, I do think that, like, you know, there are probably some pieces that are going to be worth calling about, and that would be a guy like a Breece Hall or, you know, a Garrett Wilson. So like those two players specifically, Garrett Wilson is like one that's got
Sauce Gardner.
I'm kind of interested in. Obviously, Mike Williams is the one that is going to be getting the most buzz there, and I'm very interested in him. But like I said, the Garrett Wilson, if we're going to go scratch it and go up, you know, true, like, you know, out of the box, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen there.
Yeah, so kind of going off.
But I think if the Jets were going to sell a piece like Garrett Wilson, they would have never traded for Devontae to begin with. I think that they are viewing this as Devontae is the last piece that they need to get over the hump, even though outsiders will definitely disagree with that. I think internally they believe that firing Robert Saleh and getting Devontae Adams were the two pieces that they needed to make to get over the hump. And I don't think that that's going to happen, but I just don't see a scenario where the Jets are going to part with Garrett Wilson this year. Yeah, he's going to be demoted to wide receiver 2, but remember, you're still going to have 2 wide receivers on the field on pretty much every single play. Most plays you'll have 3 wide receivers on the field. So it's not like he's not going to be a starter anymore. He's still going to be a starter. In fact, he might not even see a bump in production now because he's now going to be going against teams cornerback 2, or Devontae might be going against the cornerback 2. And yeah, it just might open things up for Garrett Wilson a little bit more with Devontae.
Well,
so this could be a positive thing.
And looking at it from the outside, we all know that they need a head coach, they need a GM, they need a vice president of something and something, they need a president of something and something, they need a new owner, they need new sponsors, they need everything.
Well, but I think that like it's something that like on the exterior it's very out of the box, but you know, I'm definitely just looking at it from the Garrett Wilson side of things. And you also have to factor in too, Aaron Rodgers also likes the players he trusts, right? And I think that's why. Do I think that, you know, Garrett Wilson and Rodgers can work together? Absolutely. But I think that's where guys like Allen Lazard, right, kind of come into, you know, the mix here, and why Lazard might actually carry just a little bit more weight, you know, than Garrett Wilson. And so now that he has, you know, Devontae, maybe that's kind of like a nice little tip that maybe he wants players that he trusts. But I do think though that
Brandon McMahon is getting signed by the Green Bay Packers.
Congratulations, McAnus. Welcome back to the league.
Now, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But going back to Jeff Bryan's thing where he says that he doesn't think that Peyton thinks that we're contenders and we probably won't make any moves. Now, obviously the pie in the sky, let's make a trade for Micah Parsons and CD Lamb. Like, obviously that's not happening. And you could be right. Like David Njoku might be a little high, but you can't tell me that there is not a tight end out there that isn't going to take a lot of money, isn't going to take a lot of trade capital that we could trade for, that's not better than any of the tight ends that we have in the room right now.
Yeah.
We're not sitting here talking about like a NFL changing wide receiver or defender. We're talking about a tight end. That we're just looking for a tight end that can play ball. There's got to be somebody.
Yeah.
And in terms of Peyton not thinking this team is a contender for what? Obviously, this team's not a contender to go to the Super Bowl this year. We can very fairly sit here and say that. But this team could easily be a playoff contender with the way that this defense has played this year and with the way that the offense is getting better pretty much every single game, save for probably this one where just a bunch of shit went wrong for you in the beginning. It was just kind of hard to establish a rhythm. I think they're going to get back on track next week against New Orleans. They're going to be 4-3. At that point, you're basically almost halfway where you need to go to get to the playoffs, where you look at the AFC and it's a lot weaker than we anticipated it was going to be at the beginning of the year, with teams like Jacksonville being absolute garbage, teams like Miami. I don't think that Miami's going to get better anytime soon. I don't think Tua coming back is going to save their season. I think that Cincinnati's been subpar this year. You know, there are a lot of teams in the AFC that we thought we were going to have to compete with for a playoff spot that might not even be in position to make the playoffs this year. So this is a good opportunity for the Broncos. They absolutely should be aggressive right now because they absolutely have a chance to make the playoffs. And you and I, we all know that Broncos country would be thrilled if they could snap that playoff losing or that playoff non-appearing streak.
And if you're a betting man, I would venture to guess that's going to break because, you know, the Raiders streak broke, the Chiefs streak broke. I mean, like, you know, so it seems like that's the next domino to fall. I will throw, you know what? I'm going to throw out another name. I know we kind of moved a little bit past the tight end, but I'm going to throw another tight end name out there, and that would be
Noah Fant.
That'd be Hunter Henry.
Oh.
With the New England Patriots. So he would be an interesting one, certainly, that I would maybe want to throw out there.
So Lombardi ties.
Yeah. So I just think that, like, you know, just overall with, you know, the deadline, to play devil's advocate just a little bit, I'm okay even if they don't do anything. And the reason why I say that is because this is a young team from the offensive side of things, and if you are going to be in the just in this mode of, you know, you take the lumps of what you get, you know, and you show the growth of what you're going to be having, you know, with this offense. It allows them to get better. It allows your quarterback to get better. It allows, you know, all those pieces to gel together, you know, and I think that, you know, that's valuable. You know what I mean? Like that is very valuable because it means that you as a team are going to be growing together. And by season's end, you are probably going to be talking about a situation where the offense might actually end up being a little bit better than it was at the start of the season. And I think that, you know, I think that, you know, do I think overall though, that you are going to be talking about a much different Bo Nix than you are, you know, at the beginning part of the season to the end of part of the season? I do. I very much think, and I think that, you know, a lot of that actually has to do with Bo's play, and specifically, like, I think we maybe undervalued what his ceiling actually is. And I think that, you know, with how he's been able to play and his mobility, I think completely raises the level of this play ceiling wise and of this football team. So I'm very much curious to see how much they really will either sit on their laurels and, you know, be aggressive in the off season, or will they just kind of take a little bit of a step back? I will say my preference would be not to sit on their hands and wait till after the Baltimore game. Make their move after Carolina. So say they go out and they win their move, or they win their games against the New Orleans Saints, and then they you know, they win against you know, Carolina. At that point, that's when I would be a little bit aggressive and go out and get that tight end, and, or, you know, maybe you know, trade for Mike Williams and trade, you know, for a guy like you know, a David Njoku, because I do think a Mike Williams move also affords you the opportunity to still get a guy like David Njoku as well. So I'm very curious about, how the Broncos do handle that.
Yeah, and I've got a thought on a trade that I think that would make sense for the Broncos. I think you take a 7th round pick and Garrett Bowles, and you trade for Patrick Mahomes, and then you roll with it this season, next season, and for the next 10 years. It's like $1 billion over 10 years. It'll work.
Good trade.
Good
trade.
Good trade.
Yeah.
All right. So going into the Saints game, we have a short week. We got Thursday night football with the Saints. We have PS2 out, as far as I know, with a concussion. It does look like Riley Moss was banged up after the game, but he was a full participant in practice. Do we have anybody? Now, I also heard that Palchevsky was not on IR, and he's coming back for this next game. Did I hear wrong?
So he got a limited practice in today. He would have gotten a limited practice in if they practiced yesterday. So that leads me to believe that he might actually play this week.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and also it's worth mentioning too that, we talked about the whole Garrett Bowles experiment. It's
a failure at this point.
No, but I'm just saying when I say experiment, I'm just saying Mike McGlinchey. And, Mike McGlinchey was just opened up with his practice window. That was one of the other big things today was they opened up the practice window. So it's going to be interesting. Maybe it's not Paul Chesky, but maybe there is a window where Mike McGlinchey is actually starting right tackle for that, for that Saints game. And also Baron Browning. Might actually have an opportunity where he's back. So now you're adding, the complementary piece probably of that pass rush unit with a guy like Jonathan Cooper, who's certainly emerging and becoming a core piece of this defense, where I think he probably will get a contract extension. The more things, trend upwards and upwards and upwards a little bit. But I just think that, so he's certainly a piece. So you're just kind of adding a little bit to the room. And those are really two of probably your biggest names.
So off track just a little bit, because we were going to talk about the Broncos and Saints. But at this point, what do you do with Baron Browning? Like, you have pass rushers emerging, and we all thought Baron Browning was going to be that solidified starting guy on the line. What do you do with him now?
I think
I've got an unpopular take.
Go for it.
I think you trade him. Because this is his last year of his contract.
Thank you.
If you're going to extend either Cooper or Browning, and I think it's always was going to be a choice between either one of them, at this point, Cooper has earned it. The thing is, though, I've tried to grow a beard before. I just get pissed off with it, and I shave it off.
Rogaine.
Yeah.
It itches. It doesn't feel right. I just
you got to get it
prefer
past
to be
that
clean
point.
shaven, or kind of how I am now, with just kind of a little bit of stubble.
Actually, okay. So again, off track again. But when your beard starts getting itchy, you got to use beard oil.
Okay, fair enough. But anyway, I think at this
Back
point,
to football.
I think at this point, Cooper's earned that contract extension over Browning. So you might want to see what you can get for Browning on the trade market. For a 1-year rental, you might be able to get a 4th-round pick back, and that's about the equivalent of a compensatory pick you would get for him, and you would get that pick a year earlier, essentially. So that's what my logic is there in trading Browning.
I'm not Diddy.
That's actually a good video idea.
I'm kind of indifferent. I'm kind of indifferent on the Browning idea. Meaning, if they decide to move on from him, that's great. And I think that if there's a case, maybe you be a little bit adventurous, a little bit, and you do have a conversation with Atlanta and say, hey, we'll flip you, Baron Browning. How would you feel if you gave us Kyle Pitts or something? Just start a conversation. So I think that, and I saw that in the chat too, as far as, Browning for a Kyle Pitts idea. So I think that you're trying to be at least adventurous, but I think that overall, I think they'll probably sit on their hands a little bit, not trade him. But the way it's going, I don't think he's going to be a Bronco next year. Like that's just the way that it's going. But I think I will say the way that this has gone is kind of exactly the way we had kind of envisioned it, which is it's probably going to end up being an audition year for guys like a Baron Browning and a Jonathan Cooper. And Jonathan Cooper is the one, that is basically running away with it. And Gage, I already know your answer because I see Rich A in the comments.
That's exactly the question I was just going to ask. Like for
Yeah.
me, I understand the trade part of it, but we also saw legit play at inside linebacker from Baron Browning, and we're still struggling at inside linebacker. Why not move him back over?
I just think he's more suited to play edge in the NFL.
Thank
You
you.
tried that for 1 year, and it was okay, but Baron Brown is an edge rusher. He is not an inside linebacker. He is an edge rusher and can be a dominant one. The issue for him has been health, and at this point, Cooper's proven to be the healthier player, and this year he's playing like a dominant force right now. If the Broncos were to let that walk, they'd be stupid. And for Browning, I think that when he's healthy, he can be, if not a number one pass rusher, certainly a damn good number two. Like, Atlanta would be a great destination for him. I think that's actually a good idea. See if they'd be willing to flip him for Kyle Pitts.
No, later, after we play him.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, right, exactly. After.
not this season.
Yeah.
Next season.
Well, because and this is also a very unpopular take, but and obviously things aren't really going well with them, this particular player right now because of the fact he's not been playing, and he's been a little bit banged up, but they already have that replacement at home right now, and unfortunately, that's not really gone well either. And that is Drew Sanders. Drew Sanders actually, I think, is probably what they would have wanted to do. And that's have him be, that inside linebacker. Unfortunately, he just had that unfortunate injury. So it's still worth filing away that, the Broncos might still have that inside linebacker on the roster with the guy by the name of Drew Sanders. He's just injured all the time. And
straight up forgot he was.
This is actually about the time where we were expecting Drew Sanders to come back from his injury. So maybe after the mini bye, they might open up his 21-day window.
Yeah. But should we expect it? And based on how things have gone, with his Bronco career, maybe not. But it's just for our ears and everything. It's certainly worth filing away. But again, the inside linebacker position is for sure something that is maybe the weakest point of the team. But you got to also give credit where credit is due, and that is if Alex Singleton comes back, there's an argument to be made that you do not have Cody Barton next year, and we're saying this, in the early part of the season, you don't have Cody Barton here next year, but you have Justin Sternad starting next to him, with Alex Singleton, and then at that point you are talking about a little bit of a much better room, specifically. But I will say though, the Drew Sanders stuff is still worth filing away because the way things are going specifically within that edge room. It's so much more beneficial for you to keep Drew Sanders there on that inside based on how athletic he is and the frame that he has.
Yeah, and again, I completely forgot Drew Sanders was even on the team. I had just didn't even think about it. All right, so getting back to the Broncos and the Saints on Thursday, we've seen the Saints kind of do this through the season so far. Started really high and then kind of dropped off. It's also a Saints team that doesn't have Michael Thomas really doing anything ever, so that's good. But how do you see this game between the Saints and the Broncos playing out?
It's going to be an emotional game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think it's just going to be close just because it's an emotional game. So I think that the Broncos, I feel like they do come away with a victory. I have them winning this game. And I will say it's because, for in large part, the injuries that the Saints are having is just really unfortunate.
Ridiculous.
It's really unfortunate. Basically they are starting a completely, new offensive line. That's what it feels like. They are starting a completely new offensive line. And, and the weapons are basically all three of us out there. It's basically, kind of like no-namers, if you will. We're more than no-namers, obviously. But I'm just saying, their wide receiver one on Thursday night is a guy by the name of Bub Means. A real wide receiver by the name of Bub Means. And I think that, if you're a Spencer Rattler fan, like this is going to end up, being a case where how good is Spencer Rattler and how much does he lift the floor of that wide receiver room? So I just think, unfortunately, the Broncos are just a deeper team. They're a much deeper team. And it felt like the game that they had against the Chargers was a nice little wake-up call for them, before this game against Thursday.
Oh, you're back.
So, I didn't even realize I had fallen until I had gotten back over here. I was looking at the Saints depth chart.
Yeah, DB94 says they've got a pretty deep injury report.
It's pretty nasty, yeah. Like on the offensive line, you've got both of your starting guards who are probably going to be down for this one. You've got former Bronco Connor McGovern, who's going to start at center, and I believe he's like their third center of the year or some crap like that. You got a rookie left tackle, a first-round bust at right tackle, not to mention you're starting a rookie quarterback. Your
on a short week,
top three receivers in this game look like it's going to be Bub Means, Mason Tipton, and Cedric Wilson. Yeah, not great, Bob. Alvin Kamara,
sure.
Your running back room is probably your best room that you have offensively right now. This Saints team has been bad. And then defensively, on paper, they're good, but they also got some injuries. Pete Warner, their linebacker, Tyrann Mathieu beat up, and they gave up 51 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week.
Tyrann Mathieu still playing?
Yeah, he's on the Saints. Their defense, they're talented, but I just don't know what to make of them right now because they've been so hot and cold this year. I know Saints fans are calling for Dennis Allen and Joe Woods' head right now because of the way their defense is played. I just think that the Broncos match up way better against this team than they did last week against the Chargers. I think that their pass rush is going to feast against this patchwork offensive line. I could see Zach Allen having multiple sacks. I could see Nick Benito, Jonathan Cooper, hell, maybe even Baron Browning having multiple sacks. JFM. I think everybody could get in on the sack party on this one because this offensive line is complete patchwork. And as we know here in Denver, having an offensive line that has played together and has continuity is really the secret formula to winning games. And the Saints just don't have that. And you have a rookie quarterback making his second NFL start behind that. So I think that Denver's going to win the battle of attrition up front. They're going to feast in the trenches. And this is a good week to not have PS2 out there because the Saints wide receivers are so beat to hell. I have the Broncos winning this game, and I actually have the Broncos winning by multiple scores. I think that the Broncos are going to win 28-10.
Oh.
So I just think that, for this game, like the one really where it truly feels like that, it cancels out. The X factor of this game is one that you should expect him to not play, and that is Rashid Shaheed. The fact he popped up onto the injury report, I think is really unfortunate for the Saints because he is a dynamic player, but he's an X factor. He's on special teams. He's a weapon, in the passing game. He's basically probably how the Broncos would envision a guy like a Troy Franklin down the line. But I just think that, for everything that, that's there, it was a good game. It was a good game to have against the Chargers. And I think that, they will be a little bit more emotional and to the occasion for this Thursday night game. And just pray that it doesn't turn into the Indianapolis and, Denver game that was that amazing Thursday night football game.
Yeah. I think that this game is going to sum up how the Broncos actually are, right? Like you look at the Saints and they're a below average to bad team. Like they kind of fluctuate between depending on who they're playing. And I think when you look at the last 8 years of the Broncos, it was so up and down where we would beat a team that's a Super Bowl contender and then we'd lose to the Panthers. That's the kind of season we've been having. And I feel like the Broncos are finally at the point where we're going to beat the teams we're supposed to beat, compete with the teams that are there with us, and then at least hang in with the teams like, and I'm not saying we wouldn't win some, but the teams with like the Chiefs and the Ravens and like the Lions, like these Super Bowl contenders. I think that we're finally at the point where we're going to beat the teams we're supposed to, compete with the ones that are on the same level we are, and then make it close with the contenders. And so I feel like this, I'm kind of in line with what Gage is saying. Like, I think that being able to, even without PS2, being able to cover their receivers without having to worry about them really making any separation, because the only room that's worse than our tight end room is their wide receiver room right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, when you remove Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed.
Exactly. Yeah. So right now, going into this game, they are horrible at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And with Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones, and Franklin Myers there in the middle, they're not going to be able to run very much. Zach Allen, like, they're not going to be able to run that much. We're going to be able to get to the quarterback. Spencer Rattler's not going to know what to do. If we can confuse Aaron Rodgers, we can confuse Spencer Rattler. Just saying. So I think, I'm there with Gage. I think it's going to be like a 27-13 kind of game.
Yeah. But I think that this is going to be a fun little game, I think, for fans to understand about how good the Broncos valued Spencer Rattler, though. I mean, like, this is the Broncos really liked Rattler, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out with a guy like Bo Nix and Spencer. But you might be looking at a somewhat of a situation that's, kind of like Dallas and, when they took Prescott and we took Paxton, right? Slightly somewhat different, but it's just like, it's like, but if Bo Nix doesn't work out, they probably, or they didn't want Bo Nix, I should say. I think it's really easy to say that Spencer Rattler was probably one of the top one or two quarterbacks right next in line that they were going to end up taking. So he's a very smart quarterback. He's a very cerebral quarterback. And he's definitely matured. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He has definitely matured since his time in Netflix, and but I just think
such a good show. I love that show.
But I just think that, again, like, there's just, the Saints might win this game, but it's like it's going to end up because of how Spencer Rattler performs. Like, this is going to be a big game for him, and proving those doubters, and really, giving the Saints at least something to root for. So I think that if you're Saints fans, like, you hope that, Spencer Rattler at least shows something, because, like, this would be a really strong takeaway for them. Because, like, if he goes out and he basically makes, this wide receiver room smell like rosemary, you're already probably talking about a situation where they need to maybe move on from Derek Carr. And so, like, it's something to file away, that it's not out of the realm of possibility that, Spencer Rattler has a pretty decent game because of where he is and, how cerebral he is as a player.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he's going to have to beat this team with his arm against man coverage. Like, the Broncos are going to play contain with their D-line. They're going to try to keep him in the pocket because they know that he can beat you with his legs. I think they'll put a spy on him. They're going to test him. They're going to light him up. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees a lot of all-out pressure looks, because that's what Vance Joseph has been doing lately. He's not afraid to bring the house. I just think that Vance Joseph is going to kind of do what Mike McDonald did to the Broncos offense week 1, where just exploit the fact that you've got a rookie quarterback, in this case making his second NFL start. And I just think that the way that this Broncos team matches up, like, Spencer could play a good game. I just don't think that the rest of the Saints team is going to match up well against this Broncos team, with how beat up they are and how well Sean Payton knows Dennis Allen and company.
Yeah, and it's not like we're overlooking Spencer Rattler. I mean, there was a reason why we were so interested in Spencer Rattler in the offseason, because you look at Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix. I'm not saying they're the same, but they're similar. Smart quarterbacks, accurate arm, can move in the pocket, can get out and scramble with their legs. So there is the possibility that you're going to see some Spencer Rattler scrambles like you would see Bo Nix scramble.
Yeah. Well, but I think the one area where it could be a bit fascinating to see is like he's got a lively arm. He's actually got more of a livelier arm than Bo, just a little bit. So much so that like a lot of people maybe felt like he might have had one of the better arms next to guys like Caleb Williams and even Jaden Daniels. And it's one of the reasons why he was a highly touted prospect. Why he was a highly touted prospect in terms of a high school prospect, going to Oklahoma. So like. And because of those lively arms, he could have throws. He could have throws to guys like Cedric Wilson, where you go, oh, wow. Like he put it in like a window where literally Riley Moss could not get it. So like there could be moments like that. And, so we can't be surprised. We also can't, as to nice little circle back here, we can't as a Broncos, Twitter community be like, well, why can't Bo Nix do that? So like
get him, Cam, roast him, get him.
So like, how come he can't do that? How come he can't do these back shoulder passes, man? Oh, he's got a noodle arm. He can't do this.
Why don't we focus on what he can do?
Yeah, why don't we actually like focus on what he can do, and that is actually get a chance to do some running plays a little bit. And I wonder if this particular game against the Saints is one where you do see a little bit more of Nix's running ability, where you might see a little bit of some read option. You might actually see a little bit of some QB powers, some design runs, like the one design run that they had against the Russell Wilson play that I think would be very beneficial for a guy like Bo. It was like that QB power play that they ran for 20 some yards. But I would not be surprised if you actually see finally some more design quarterback runs. And I don't mean like those CFL QB sneaks that you're seeing.
Those are so fun though.
But
now one thing that we didn't bring up, and I want to end with this. It looks like we're going to see Russell Wilson starting for the Steelers, which to me doesn't make any sense. Why change when you're winning? Like Justin Fields is not playing horrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible.
The funniest thing is the team he's also playing against too. He's playing the Jets.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we're not playing him. What are you talking
Russ
about?
versus Hackett.
Justin Fields has a long way to go. He's got some bad habits that he got in Chicago that he needs to fix. But at this point, he's playing well enough for you to win games.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's playing well enough for you to compete in that division. Why change it?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And this is going to be a move that I think rubs a lot of people in the locker room the wrong way, especially if Russ goes out there and starts stinking it up. If he takes drive-killing sack after drive-killing sack, I think the fan base is going to get pissed off, and I think the locker room is going to get pissed off as well. This could be what undoes Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. I don't understand this at all.
Would take a lot, to be honest. He's been there forever.
Justin
and
Fields,
they don't get rid of coaches.
Don't get me wrong. Just like you said, Mike, Justin Fields has bad habits, but he also raises the overall ceiling of that football team where Russ lowers it. I mean, you look at plays where Justin Fields gets out of sacks when your right tackle forgets completely how to do his job. And that's a play where Russ would have spun around 3 times, looked around, and eventually got strip sacked. Like, I think about plays like that, and it's the same thing here in Denver where Bo Nix is raising the floor of this offense because he's getting out of those bad plays. Like the Garrett Bowles play, Russ would have gotten strip sacked on that. There was another play where Bo got flushed out of the end zone. Russ would have gotten sacked for a safety. Bo's able to get the ball out, and he's able to get a completion on that play. So it's the same thing with Justin Fields.
Right.
He's able to get you out of bad plays.
And he's not just talking about stripping the ball. He's talking like pants off, shirt off, everything. Just completely strip sacked.
But, and this is really kind of like where I'm a big Mike Tomlin supporter. Like everybody that knows this knows, like I'm a big Mike Tomlin supporter. But like this is one where it's like what are you trying to do? Because the thing that Tomlin is such a huge proponent of is culture. I mean, we're talking about a coach that was, there for the very toxic Le'Veon Bell, the Roethlisberger, the Antonio Brown, all of those parties were there, and he helped ride that ship and basically, make them a very well-oiled machine. And so he's dealt with multiple personalities before, but you're 4-2, and to Gage's point, it's Fields is actually playing really good football, actually. And it's basically everything that I thought of when he was going to the Steelers, which was I thought you were going to see a little bit of a much better Fields because of the fact that Tomlin is such a player's coach. This is the complete opposite of being a player's coach, because this is not honoring your players. It's not, seeing the overall value of what it brings to a locker room. This is the complete opposite of that. This is, so you put Russell Wilson in there, he will be the complete opposite of what we've seen, with Justin Fields. He will dance around the pocket, but he will hold the ball on way too long. And the part where the explosiveness will not be there is those runs that Justin Fields is going to be a huge proponent of. That is not going to be a thing with this Steelers team. And frankly, I will say, the way that the Justin Fields team, to the Age's point, is raising the ceiling. The Russell Wilson thing is going to end up nosediving the entire offense of the Steelers. It's going to look really bad. And if you're a Steelers fan and you're watching this, it's going to look really rough.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and apologize for Tomlin or anything that's going on, but you have to think, looking at Tomlin and the history of decisions he's made, there has to be something going on with Fields that we don't know about. There has to be an injury or concussion concern or
contract situation
or something that's going on. Because when you look at Mike Tomlin through the years in Pittsburgh, this decision doesn't make any sense.
Well, specifically, if you're looking at quarterbacks, if you're specifically even looking at last year, where they went through multiple quarterbacks, what are you doing? Unless there's injury concerns, to your point, don't make the switch. Don't make the switch. Stick with Justin Fields and ride the hot hand. This is not, a hard decision by any means. So you're making this completely worse.
I mean, we saw Mike Tomlin start Mason Rudolph for the back half of last year, including the playoff game, because he thought Mason Rudolph gave him the best chance to win. I don't understand how he can look at Russell Wilson right now and think that Russell Wilson gives him the best chance to win. Sean Payton is willing to go through all of these struggles right now with lack of personnel because he thought that Russell Wilson not being on this team was the best long-term move for the Denver Broncos.
While paying him tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Davis, sorry, we are talking about the Steelers because we brought up Russ and how they're going to start him over Fields, and we just wanted to talk about it before we ended the show. Other than that, we hate the Steelers, and we're never going to talk about them again. It's Russell Wilson, and we hate him more. So we're going to talk about it.
Stopped talking about Russell Wilson.
We are out on Russell Wilson.
But to tie a bow on Ronaldo, agree with Jeff. Just come out and basically just say that Justin Fields is our quarterback. Leave it at that. He should be the starting quarterback for the entire season, and just cut it then. And and just be done with it. And he didn't do that.
All right. Anything else that we did
and if
not
Russ
cover?
Doesn't like it, he's on a 1-year vet minimum deal. Cut his ass.
Yeah.
All right. Anything that we did not cover?
No.
I think we're good.
Cool. Well, we appreciate every single person that joined us in the chat. We love it when you guys are in here making comments. It makes the show go faster. Not that I want it to go faster. It makes the show go better. There, we'll go that. It makes the show go better, smoother. Unless you're being weird, and then it throws us off like me. But yeah, we appreciate every single one of you joining us. Make sure you check out every other show on the network. We've got shows not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on Broncos game day. It will not be myself on the neighborhood. It's going to be Johnny and potentially somebody else. Make sure you also check out Mainly Broncos on Wednesdays with Cam. They're going to have 2 episodes this week, one before the game and one after, so make sure you check that out. And Gage Madrid on hosting the Broncos Syndicate, which honestly is the only place that I get my information from. So go ahead and check that out. You got
just wanting my prediction. I don't know if I got it, but it was like 27-17.
27-7. So we're all right around that same area.
Yeah.
Like 28, 27. Okay. So yeah, we're all right there. Make sure you check out, yes, I got you, Rich, the Wild Wild West tomorrow.
Great
Make sure
show.
you check that out. Yeah, it is a great show. And as far as I can tell, it's one of the only shows out there that covers all 4 AFC West teams. So it's a great show. Check it out. The hosts are fun. It's fantastic.
Rich has a great beard. Better than Mike's.
No, that's not a thing. Like, we already had votes before you guys were on the network that I had the best beard ever.
It's Rich.
I'm saying that. Now, I'll just throw this out there, even though Glenn's not here, right? Like, the network has been around, well, not even the network. So the 5280 podcast used to be called the Mile High Roundtable Podcast. That's what it was called. It wasn't even a network. We've been around going on 5 years now. And Glenn is the one that started it all with me, him and Adon, who's now back on the network with Orange and Blue. And it's been an absolute insane ride. I love everything we've done. I love having Cam and Gage on here. There's a reason why you guys are co-hosts and not contributors. Like, we all have a say in the network, and I appreciate you guys being on here. I love you guys being on here. And I know that with the relationship that we have with everybody on the network, if there's anything that I ever need, I can give you guys a call and you'll be there. So I appreciate you guys being on the network.
But back at you, Mike, and it definitely explains, how much time and effort that you put in for you to have a gray hair already on your beard.
Oh, this was like my first kid. This was my second one. This was all my wife. Like, it's just being married, man. Makes you like 80 years older.
Yeah.
It's like I saw this thing yesterday that was perfect. It was like, mentally I'm 29. Humor wise, I'm 12, but physical, I feel like I fought in the Civil War. Yeah. Like that's how I feel right now.
It's to use the Lord of the Rings reference with your beard.
That's right.
It's basically going from Gandalf the Gray, Gandalf the Gray to Gandalf the White with your beard.
Yeah, I'm mid switch. I haven't fully got there yet. But yeah, again, enough with all the mushy stuff. But I do love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Same thing with like Jeff Bryan. You've been around forever, and I appreciate you sticking with the network. It really is awesome when you guys are in the chat. So make sure you check out all the shows. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. Like, we know a bunch of haters, but go ahead and hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. Doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free, and we love if you could do that. We will see you guys later. We love the Broncos. We love Broncos country. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles.